Yes, YouTubers. DW Forever 917 celebrating his 10th year back on YouTube. Glad to see he's lasted this long. And with all that out of the way, let's get to our swell presentation already. Cue the disclaimer.
Warning, the following video contains false information and is meant for entertainment only. It also contains violence, sexual conduct, profane fucking language, and annoying robotic text-to-speech voices. If you are offended by any of the above, get a fucking sense of humor. Your discretion is advised.
Everywhere you look, there's a heart, a hand to hold on to. Everywhere you look, there's a face of somebody who needs you. Everywhere you look, when you're lost out there and you're all alone, life is waiting to carry you home. Everywhere you look. Everywhere you look. Samurai pizza
Hello my faithful faggots, my name is Pickles, the gayest man in the universe, and today I am going to explain to you why I declined the part of Franz Liszt in the 1975 Ken Russell film Lisztomania. As you may have guessed, my early days as a struggling film school student in the 1970s was less than glamorous, considering that gay rights were still considered a taboo subject during that time period. Yes, we had Michael Greer, but his presence was as unestablished as myself back in those days. And Charles Nelson Riley wouldn't come out until the cancellation of Match Game, and so the gay community was at a low-profile era. Then one day, while I was fluffing my boner for a low-budget amateur porno, I was confronted by director Ken Russell, who was just coming off from his film adaptation of the Lisztomania. And now he was looking for fresh talent for his next up-and-coming film project, a musical comedy loosely based on the biography of real-life 19th century composer Franz Liszt as the history's first classical pop star. So I figured I'd give this a shot, since my gay porno career was going nowhere, and figured I would get my sexy ass recognized in the gay community by starring in a surreal musical. And so I boarded the next plane to jolly old England and masturbated my way to film stardom. When I got on set for the first day of filming, I noticed one of the various props for the film that just took my breath away. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Ken Russell's films knows that Ken Russell is noted for two things. One is a surreal take in sacrilegious imagery, and the other is phallic symbols, and this film is no fucking exception. Oh yeah baby, something told me that this film was going to be right up my alley, And you can bet without a shadow of doubt that I was throwing hints to Ken Russell in how to improve the film's swellness by making a swell suggestion for changes here and there. But oh sweet Gildas, you have no idea how much suffering I went through while on the set during the filming process, and you'll get what I mean soon enough. So without further ado, let's get to the problems in question that led to my inevitable departure. First, there is the opening scene when Liszt is caught in bed with the wife of French aristocrat Count Pickles, and he challenges me to a duel, and comical hijinks ensue. First of all, the implication that I, Drew Pickles, would be caught in bed with an erg woman is no short of an insult punishable by death. Why, the fact that Liszt has a daughter in the film suggests that I would have had sex with the dreaded skank Marie Pickles, and that idea alone made my penis curl like the Wicked Witch of the East. If I had any say in the matter, I would have changed it so that I would actually be having my swell way with the sexy as all will count, and it would be the skank who would walk in on us unawares, and then I would leap from the bed and turkey slap the bitch senseless, and whilst in her bewildered trance I will use the Count's sword, of which we would be using as a swell but painful dildo in the earlier scene, and use my quicker than average homosexual sword skills to join the sorry slut into a bloody pile of fleshy spaghetti. And then me and the Count could get back to our passionate lovemaking. Yes, that would have been swell. Another unswell scene I didn't particularly care for is the one where Liszt leaves for Russia to try and seduce that equally slutty Princess Caroline. In fact, the scene alone involves many women, and it just made me want to bork. And besides, the sinister-looking outfit that the dreaded harlot wears in the movie just screams out the next future muff muncher of the Repulsor Republic, don't you think? The only swell thing about the scene was that it also happened to be the one to feature the big wooden dildo prop, of which was to be used in the hallucination sequence, where Liszt imagines getting a 10-foot erection. Which, despite not even coming close to comparing with my 300-mile-long penis, it's still an otherwise swell concept nonetheless. So naturally I suggested to Ken Russell that Liszt would take the rocking dildo and use it to smash in Princess Caroline's head like and then proceed to beat all the other females in her menagerie to death. And once the vagina infestation is cleared out, Liszt would use the big dildo in himself, and it would sound like a right on cowboy bag. Yes, that would have been swell. But by far my favorite scenes in the film had to be the ones involving the film's main antagonist Richard Wagner, played by no other than singer-songwriter and musical stage performer Paul Nicholas, in his best role since Cousin Kevin the school bully from the previously mentioned Tommy film adaptation that Russell made earlier that year. Hahaha.
Ah yes, and may I add as a bisexual representative of the unestablished union, I considered it a great honor for Mr. Pickles to be lusting after my jolly ass throughout the film's production. Wink.
Yes, and now let's get to the swell suggestions I made for the scenes involving me and Nicholas that were ultimately shot down for the film. There's the scene where Wagner goes to one of Liszt's concerts to meet with him and his colleagues and try to sell Liszt the opera he wrote for him to play at his next big concert. I wanted to extend the scene in where Liszt would give Wagner a long and vigorous hand job in the bargain, and it would go like that. Oh yeah baby, feel those magic fingers slide that. I've been tickling the ivories all day, now let me tickle your testicles. Now shower me with your milk of magnesia, you sexy German bastard. Bag. Yes, that would have been swell. Another potential favorite part of the film took place during the May uprising in Dresden, where Lutz is once again confronted by Wagner, who is now a wanted radical activist in the run, and comes to Liszt for money so that he and his family can escape the country. But Wagner's true intent is to drug Lutz and rob him of his music and talent, and use it to start a new German revolution. But instead of sucking the musical talent from his neck like a vampire, I suggested that the scene would involve Wagner performing fellatio on Liszt and sucking him off until the yummy white talent came gushing out of his long conductor's pointer, and it would sound like bag. Yes, that would have been swell. The next scenes I want to address are the ones that feature former Beatles member Ringo Starr as the Pope. Baby, that glamorous Lemmy Adonis of male fantasies gives me a raging swizzle stick, and I looked forward to every scene I was able to be in with him.
Yes, thanks loads for the swell compliment, Mr. Pickles. I appreciate hearing feedback from all the fans of me work, and you my friend are no exception. Sincerely yours, Ringo.
P.S. Forgive the lateness of my reply.
But anyways, skipping the wedding scene between Liszt and the dreaded skank Princess Caroline, there's the scene where the Pope informs Lutz that Richard Wagner along with Liszt's estranged daughter Cosima have perverted his music to create a new cultish regime, and that he must travel to Germany to perform an exorcism on Wagner to restore him to the Christian faith. And naturally, I suggested to Ken Russell that the scene should include a personal exorcism between Liszt and the Pope as a swell warm-up, and it would all sound like it's been a hard day's night, and I'm gonna work you like a dog. Here comes the sun, and you know it don't come come easy. Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 69? That movie Caveman would have been much sweller if you and Laura were butt buddies rather than having your character at lust after those Lisztomania teller. Also, you marrying Barbara Bach in real life is another unswell disappointment. Shelley Long is an overrated harlot. But of course this shit doesn't even happen for another 6 years, so enough disrupting the time. Line and let me suck you off. The length of your cock is 16. It's beautiful, and it's mine. Come together over me. Bag. Yes, that would have been swell. In the following scene, where Liszt confronts Wagner at his castle, Wagner will reveal his ultimate creation, an Iron Viking by the name of Siegfried, which he will use to rid Germany of the Jewish plague. I must admit that the design of the Iron Viking, with the silver spray body paint, had given off the image of a metal-plated game swelly, but if I had my way I would have given him a design similar to that of Sean Connery's Zed character from the earlier 70s sci-fi movie Zardoz. But perhaps that's a topic best saved for another Drew Pickles Explains video. But now on to the changes that I suggested to the scene. Instead of trying to perform an exorcism by using a piano and play his music to cleanse Wagner of his vampiric evil, I wanted it so that Liszt would help Wagner find salvation with his 300-mile-long crucifix pounding the evil from his anal cavity, while also using the Iron Viking as a life-size dildo, and it would all sound like And God God said let there be light. Bag. Yes, that would have been swell. And now we come to the next and most swellest suggestion that I made to the film, and that was the big finale. Soon after I am imprisoned in Wagner's dungeons, Wagner is resurrected into the perfect man, a literal Nazi Frankenstein. After unleashing Wagnerstein onto the Jewish population, gunning them down with his machine gun guitar, Cosima kills off her father with a voodoo doll and he ascends into heaven with all the females of his past, including Cosima, who we can assume was killed off-screen during Wagnerstein's chaos. Well, good riddance, I say. But I had suggested that rather than be reunited with any of those dreaded females in heaven, that I would instead be greeted by a handful of members in the Barney Bunch who were also killed off by Wagnerstein and his followers. Such swell sexy Barney Bunch bummers would of course include my fattest husband Barney the triple testicle dildosaur, Ronald the penis clown McDonald, the Quaker queer, Chaz the fister finster, Steve Urkel, Tony Little, and Rodney Blowjobs Perfect. And as we look down on Earth and notice that Wagnerstein's rampage has taken out most of Berlin, me and my Barney Bunch bummers will head back to Earth in our giant pipe organ spacecraft, only in my suggestion it would be a rocket-powered dildo. And as we close in on Wagnerstein's location we would all start to jack off our throbbing hot boners in unison, which would sound like a and then fire our combined love liquid directly at Wagnerstein like and then the reswellenized Richard Wagner would leap onto our rocket dildo and join us in a heavenly re-entry mega bum rump orgy, and it would all sound like back last at last I'll live in peace at last. Forgiven for my past I'm gonna live in peace at last. Peace through penis, that is. And we'd all live sexually ever after. Peg, yes that would have been swell. But when I arrived at the studio the next day, Ken Russell came out personally to tell me that my character had been recasted. Ken Russell said that I was the sickest bastard he had ever encountered and wanted me nowhere near the production of his film. In his own words, I may be a surrealist filmmaker, but if the real Francelist were alive today to hear all the sick and twisted suggestions to his character, he would jump back in his grave and spin in it. Now get out, you'll never work in this town again. Go sweet Tildas, some people have no real artistic vision. Erg. Anyways, that's how your favorite faggot mentor of the Barney Bunch almost starred in a Ken Russell film. And although that sexy Roger Daltrey filled my part swelly in the actual film, it still bothers me how that homophobe Russell was so discriminative while I was in the film's production. Oh well, I'm sure that some other members of the Pickles family will go on to get him trouble in some of his future film projects. Well, thanks for listening and be sure to stay tuned for more swellness to come and I'll come on this YouTuber's channel. And hopefully he won't get said channel fucking terminated again for another 3 years before that like he did back in 2010. Anyways, see you later my swell sexy faggots. Peace out y'all.
The end!
Sitting with my boys, chillin', checking YouTube, googling the wrapping of vanilla iced tea cube. You wanna mess with me, then you'll end up in a bandage. Missing all your teeth, you'll be sucking at a sandwich. In the dead of night, get a fright, I might start a riot, break the quiet. Look into my eye, can you see I'm kinda edgy? If you wanna play a tough guy, how about a wedgie? Better stay alert, wouldn't recommend a nap.
By the way, if you enjoyed this slow rap song that yours truly made just a couple years ago, and yes, that was me, you can listen to it along all my other slow hit singles and Broadway production hits on my compilation album Paul Nicholas Gold. Whether you're dancing with the captain or getting stuck in an elevator, or even calling your baby on the love line, you can always get your swell groove on with yours truly ringing in your ears. And if that's not enough to fulfill your candy pop song fix, you can head over to the Paul Nicholas YouTube page to check out some tracks from Paul Nicholas rarities, or some of the bonus tracks on the deluxe edition on the strip. Yes! Now if you'll excuse me, my whole ass is about to have a sexy mature three-way with these two sexy G-milks right here. Farewell for now my fellow and established followers.
Hello?